I am 103 years old, and I can tell you the exact moment I understood what happiness was. Not when I got married, not when my children were born, not when I finally had enough money to stop worrying. It was sitting on a bench in Central Park 3 years ago, watching my great-grandson chase pigeons. That's when I realized I'd spent 80 years waiting for happiness to arrive, instead of noticing it was already there. I need to tell you how I wasted most of my life looking for something I already had. I was born in Poland in 1922. My family was poor, not struggling poor, sleeping 4 to a bed poor. My father worked in a factory. My mother took in laundry. I was the oldest of 6 children, and by the time I was 8, I was responsible for keeping them alive while my parents worked. We came to America when I was 11. Ellis Island, 1933. We lived in a tenement on the Lower East Side. 6 of us in 2 rooms. My father found work in a garment factory. I quit school at 14 to work in the same factory as my father. I was angry about that for years. Angry that other girls my age were going to dances while I was sewing buttons onto coats for 12 hours a day. Angry that my childhood ended before it started. But I didn't know I was supposed to be happy. Happiness wasn't something people talked about back then. You survived. You worked. You took care of your family. That was life. My father died when I was 17. Heart attack at 42 years old. One day he went to work and he didn't come home. The factory foreman knocked on our door at midnight. I remember my mother's face when he told her. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there holding the door frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I was in the next room. I heard everything. And I knew in that moment that my life had just changed forever. I thought grief would be the hardest thing I'd ever face. After that, I became the main earner. Me and my mother both working, trying to keep 5 younger children fed and housed. My youngest sister was 4 years old. She didn't understand why Papa wasn't coming home. I had to explain it to her. I was 17 years old, and I had to explain death to a 4-year-old. There was no time to grieve. I just worked. I met my first husband when I was 22. His name was Joseph. He worked at the factory, too. Quiet, serious, 10 years older than me. We got married 6 months after we met, because that's what you did. Joseph died in 1947. We'd been married 3 years. Tuberculosis. They put him in a sanatorium upstate. I visited him twice because I couldn't afford the train fare more than that. The last time I saw him, he couldn't speak anymore. He just looked at me. 2 weeks later, they called to say he was gone. I was 25 years old, and I was a widow. We didn't have children. We didn't have savings. I had nothing except the same factory job and the same 2 rooms I'd lived in since I was 11. Everyone told me I should be grateful I didn't have children to raise alone. But I wasn't grateful. I wanted children. I wanted the life I'd planned. Instead, I had nothing. But I didn't know yet that loss wasn't the opposite of happiness. I spent the next 5 years working and taking care of my mother and my younger siblings, and I did not think about happiness once. I thought about survival. I thought about rent. I thought about whether we'd have enough to eat that week. But here's what I didn't realize. I was happy sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. When my youngest sister made me laugh. When my mother hummed while she cooked. When I walked home from work on a warm evening and the city smelled like bread from the bakery on the corner. I was happy And I didn't know it because I thought happiness was supposed to be something bigger, something that announced itself. I thought happiness would feel like relief, like finally being done with hard things. I thought happiness would come later, when things got easier, when I had more money, when life stopped being such a struggle. I didn't understand that later never comes. I met my second husband in 1952. His name was Arthur, widower, 2 young daughters, looking for someone to help him raise them. It wasn't romantic, it was practical. He needed a mother for his girls. I needed stability. We got married and I became a mother overnight. Arthur was a good man, kind, steady, reliable. We didn't have passion, we had partnership. We raised his daughters, and then we had 3 children of our own. We worked hard. We saved money. We bought a small house in Queens, and I still wasn't happy. Not because Arthur was bad to me. He wasn't. Not because the children were difficult. They weren't. I just kept waiting for the feeling to show up, the feeling that this was it, that I'd arrived, that life was finally good. But I never felt it. I felt tired. I felt busy. I felt worried about money and the children's grades. I felt 1,000 small anxieties every day, but I didn't feel happy. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I wasn't built for happiness. I thought grief had already taken everything it could. Then in 1981, something happened that I thought would destroy me completely. My youngest son, Daniel, died in a car accident. He was 23 years old, driving home from work on a rainy night. The police came to the house at 2 a.m. Arthur answered the door. I heard him say, "No, not my boy." I don't remember the next 3 days. I know there was a funeral. I know people came to the house, but I don't remember any of it. My mind just went somewhere else. After Daniel died, I stopped believing in anything. I stopped going to church. I stopped talking to most people. I just existed. I cooked. I cleaned. But I wasn't really there. Arthur tried to help me. He'd sit next to me in the evenings and hold my hand and not say anything. He knew there was nothing to say. It took me 5 years to feel like a person again. 5 years before I could say Daniel's name without my throat closing up. One night during those years, Arthur found me sitting in Daniel's old room. I was holding one of his baseball gloves. He didn't say anything. He just sat down next to me and put his arm around me. We sat there for an hour, not talking, just sitting. That was love. I didn't know it then, but that was love. Arthur died in 1998. Heart attack, just like my father. He was 81. We'd been married 46 years. He collapsed in the kitchen one morning while I was making breakfast. I called 911, but he was already gone. I was 76 years old, and I was alone again. But it didn't happen when life finally got easier, because it never did. And that's when I started to notice something. I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't happy either. But I wasn't unhappy. I was just there. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for anything. I wasn't waiting for things to get easier. I wasn't waiting for more money. I wasn't waiting for the next stage of life. This was it. And once I stopped waiting, I started noticing. I noticed the way the afternoon light came through my apartment window. I noticed the taste of my coffee in the morning. I noticed the sound of birds outside. I noticed the feeling of clean sheets when I got into bed at night. Small things, ordinary things, things I'd walked past my entire life without seeing. And I realized those small things were happiness, not the big arrival I'd been expecting, not the dramatic relief, just the quiet pleasure of a moment that didn't hurt. That's what I'd been missing for 76 years. I'd been so busy waiting for happiness to show up in some grand way that I missed it happening in small ways every single day. My great-grandson was born when I was 100. His name is Michael. His parents bring him to visit me every Sunday. Last year we were in Central Park, and he was 3 years old, and he was chasing pigeons and laughing, and I was sitting on a bench watching him. And I felt it. That thing I'd been waiting for my whole life. Not because anything special was happening. Michael was just running. The pigeons were just flying. The sun was just shining. But I was there, fully there, not thinking about what came before or what might come next, just watching my great-grandson laugh. And I thought, this is it. This is what I was looking for. Not a life without struggle. Not a life where everything worked out. Just a life where I was present enough to notice when something good was happening. I wasted 80 years waiting for the hard part to be over, waiting for life to get easier, waiting for happiness to show up and announce itself. I'm 103 years old. I've buried 2 husbands, both my parents, 3 of my siblings, and 1 of my children. I've lived through the Depression and 2 world wars, and more loss than I can count. And I'm happy now. Not because my life got easier. It didn't. Not because I finally have everything I wanted. I don't. I'm happy because I stopped waiting for happiness to arrive and started noticing it was already here. I don't know how much time I have left, maybe a year, maybe less. But I'm not waiting anymore. I'm here, right now. Noticing the light through my window, tasting my coffee, thinking about Michael's laugh, and that's enough. It was always enough. I just didn't know it.